The 12th season of Consider This is brought to you in part by From the Top, a national program showcasing the musical talents of young people. From the Top can be heard on KVNO Classical 90.7 each Saturday at 6 p.m.
Consider This, a program of issues and information behind today's news.
Kansas anymore.
An unforgettable moment as television goes from black and white to color. Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Wyatt. Welcome to this week's edition of Consider This. Our topic, the magic of television. Here with the highlights are longtime journalists Dick Smith and Dave Weber. Thanks to the two of you for joining us today.
Our pleasure. Me too.
And welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Dick, we're going to start, before we get into the history of television, let's start with your history in television.
I'm a grad from UNO. Graduated at 65. I was the editor of the Gateway and worked at the World Herald for about 3 years while I was in school. It took me 5 years to get out instead of 4. Worked at the World Herald and then went into public relations. I thought this is what I wanted to do, and I only stayed at it for about a year, and then went to KETV, where we had just started using color film, which was, it's supposed to knock people off their feet that there was color news film. You know, an accident on the street and you saw it in color. And this was a big deal. This was a very big deal. Then after, in '69, I went to Cleveland, Ohio, to WEWS as a cameraman and a field producer. I was there until '73 when I went to NBC News in Chicago. And in 1990, I resigned from NBC to form my own company, Iguana Productions, and I'm now a freelance camera producer, field producer, writer, and I do my own thing now. And I do most of my work now for ABC News, for Good Morning America, World News, Nightline, and Special Projects.
I'm sure we will talk much more about that in just a little bit, but Dave Weber, sitting to your right. Dave, talk to us about your history with television.
I was in the service out at Offutt Air Force Base, born in Chicago, grew up in Chicago, and got out of the service, went to UNO while I was in the service, and then continued at UNO, and then got into radio at KBON, did some folk singing around town with some groups, rock and roll stuff, music, and went up to Sioux City and got into television at KMEG up in Sioux City. Came back here at Channel 3, then moved over to Channel 6 in 1970, early 78, and I've been at Channel 6 since then.
Very good. Fabulous. So you both have the UNO connection, which is absolutely wonderful.
Absolutely.
And you know, Dick, as an alumni, you have supported, no doubt, the university in many ways, and most recently you donated some equipment.
Right.
And we have some of that with us today, and we would like very much for you to just kind of walk us through these 3 items that we have.
This is part of what the camera here is really like a, it has no lens on it right now because I didn't donate a lens, but I donated the camera. This is a Betacam, and this is a baby. This is my baby. I've spent a lot of time with this camera. I did the election recount in 2000 with this camera. I've been to the White House with this camera. The caucuses in Iowa. Golly, a lot of stuff with this. Hurricane Andrew. Elaine, no, I didn't do Elena with this camera. But this, I did the GOP convention just the last convention up in Minneapolis with this camera. This is a Betacam. We don't use Beta anymore in the business. The people that I work for now, we use a system called XD, which is a disc and a laser disc is what it amounts to. This is a tape camera. I have an affinity for this camera. The rest of it here is the deck, and this is a playback deck. We don't need to use these things anymore, a playback deck, because you can either play it out of the camera, the new cameras, you play it out of the camera, or and this, you would take tape out of here, put it in here, play it on this monitor. Okay. And this is a deck. This was one of the pieces of equipment that when we first started with the beta system, my sound man carried this because the camera was not a camcorder at the time. So he carried this thing and had a battery in it, and it, I don't know, weighed about 20 pounds or something like that. Well, he didn't have to carry the monitor.
Well, and obviously this means a great deal to you and brings back quite a few memories, and we appreciate you sharing those with us. Why now? Why did you decide to go ahead and give this stuff up?
Well, actually, I got to give credit to my wife, Joanne, who was a graduate here too, and I met her here at the university. When I got the XD system, I knew that this was just going to sit in cases, and I didn't see much point in that anymore. I figured someone would be able to make use of it, and I talked to Dr. Franklin here. I emailed him and said, would you be interested in this stuff? Well, he said, yeah, he was very happy with it. And it makes me feel good because one of the things that I feel about this place is that without the people that taught me here at UNO, I wouldn't be where I am today. Dr. Paul Peterson was the head of the journalism department, and Paul Borghi was the head of, I think was the head of television here. And these two men gave me an excellent background in able for me to go on and to get where I did.
Absolutely. Because
when Paul, Petey we called him, I'm sure that people will remember him. Petey said, my job here is to give you an education and to teach you to the point of where you can get a job and make a living.
Well, and Dave, I'm sure that just hearing Dick talk about some of this stuff is bringing back some memories for you. In a nutshell, talk to us about the major changes that we have seen when it comes to equipment from the time you started in this business to now. There have been quite a few, and we've mentioned some of them, but through your eyes, what have you seen?
Well, he was in larger markets. They had videotape long before we did. When I broke into television up in Sioux City, we were still shooting film. I used a little Bell and Howell or a CP16 and go out and shoot football games. And it was to the point where they saw the little Plymouth Duster with KMEG on the side of it coming to the football game down the dirt road. They would stop the game, the high school game, and then wait till I got the camera out. Then they'd blow the whistle to start the game. I'd shoot 5 or 6 plays and get in the car and drive back to the station or to another game because you had to soup the film, develop the film, and it took extra time. And when I went to Channel 3 in early 77, they were still shooting film. And Channel 6, when I went to Channel 6, we had gone to tape. And it was so much easier to just shoot tape, and then it was automatically done. And then we had a big yellow or blue and white cameras. Ikegami, I think, was the next generation after that. And the recorders were held together by an umbilical cord. You had to have your camera on one shoulder and your recorder on the other. And it weighed about 40 pounds altogether. It was just horrible. And you couldn't move very well with it.
And with things the way they are today, you had the old typewriters that you were dealing with back then
Love
too.
the old
We haven't even
typewriters.
talked about those, the big, huge, heavy, how could anybody function with those typewriters? Now we're using computers. So, you have to wonder, are we being more productive now these days? Are we getting things done more quickly? Are we generating more stories?
We had a lightning strike at the station several years ago and blew out all the computers, and so we couldn't put the show together. So somebody said, well, where are the old Olympia typewriters? We have to type scripts. And nobody knew where they were. They were locked up in a room someplace.
Here's what we use today. We call them crackberries.
It's
the BlackBerry. I mean, a producer and a correspondent and us, we cannot get along without these. I mean, I get my assignments off of this. I get emails back to the people that I work with. another thing that was very important, we were doing the caucuses this year over in Iowa. My GPS went bad in the car, in the van. We had to stop at a Walmart to buy another GPS so we could find our next assignment.
How has this changed then, Dave, with all of these things that make it seemingly much easier, simpler, quicker? How has that changed what you do on a day-to-day basis?
I am confused every 6 months. When things are upgraded, then I have to learn a whole new system, and I'm just getting to the point where I was really happy with the old system. But that's, you know, we got live trucks, we have satellite truck, we have, I remember the very first satellite shot we did was at a Kansas State game, I don't know how many years ago, 25 years ago. Unbelievable what it is now. And Al Franken on TV used to have a little helmet with a satellite dish on his helmet. I'd be very surprised if there wasn't something workable right now where you could stand there with a satellite dish on your head and send up a live shot.
Well, and for those people who are at home watching all of this, you know, you obviously have these images going on in your head. We actually do have some photographs from what we'll call back in the day, and we'd like to put those up. And if the two of you gentlemen, I think we have 6 of them, so if you want to kind of talk over those photographs as we're putting them up, there's the first one. What does that bring back?
Well, the old cameras, they were, I think they were Dage cameras, and they needed a tremendous amount of light. We used to do a biology show here, and sometimes the light was a little hard on the little animals that they brought in. I don't. This
Wish I had that microphone.
That's a great microphone. I don't remember this. This was the cameras again. I operated one of the cameras here, and I also did the board. I TD'd a little bit to technical director.
That was when the lenses clicked.
Yeah,
You had
there were turrets.
Close,
61,
medium, and
yeah, 61.
Is that when that was?
That's,
61?
yes, that is what they are telling me.
Okay.
Yes. And this shot?
that reminds me of my high school television classes.
This is
I
a
took.
few years later, the College Bowl game,
Oh,
64.
the College Bowl.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I was still here. I graduated in '65. I worked primarily on a show that was biology and I don't remember the professor who did it, but it was at noon to 1 o'clock is when we had to be here for the show.
Yeah, this is part of the biology
Is
show,
this the
what we're looking
biology
at
show?
here. Uh-huh.
We had one camera that shot the professor talking, and we had another camera that pointed down at this thing on the and he would do dissections and things like that, and of course in black and white it really wasn't very, I don't know how effective it was, but his lectures were probably pretty effective. You know, that guy on the camera looks like Mike Moran, who was,
Wouldn't that be something?
it looks like him. Do you think?
I didn't know him when he was in
I mean,
college.
Mike was, after he was in my class, 65, he became the chief spokesman for the USOC.
To do some research on that. Here's another shot.
Oh.
About 66.
I was gone
Tower
by then.
dedication. Go
Well, I was at Channel 7 at that time.
It was a windy day because they had the sandbags on the microphone
They certainly
stands.
did, yeah, yeah. Otherwise, and who's I can't tell who the person is.
Is that Carl, the old senator? Carl Curtis?
Carl Curtis?
Oh, is it Frank Morrison?
Frank Morrison, okay.
Okay.
Frank Morrison. That's
University President Kirk Naylor.
Kirk Naylor.
Around 1970.
Look at
so.
that
Well,
set.
was he president at the time when I was here? He was vice president when I was here, Kirk Naylor, yeah. Don Flaster was the dean of students and Milo Bale was the president.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
Kirk Naylor, yes, that sure is Kirk Naylor.
Wow.
And that's one of the cameras that Channel 3 donated to the school. The old color TK-44s, RCA TK-44s. Took 4 people to lift that camera.
Interesting.
I remember helping at NBC, when I first went to NBC and got into electronics, we had cameras not quite that big, but we would take them at Soldier Field, take them up to the high, what we called it, high 50, 50-yard line. Took 4 of us to carry them up the. Those days, I don't want to
Could've
think about
used two
those
more
days.
guys,
Huh?
too. You
Oh,
could've
yeah,
used
could have
two
used
more.
two more guys. The cameras were like 200 pounds.
Well, and that's a lot of the behind the scenes. And Dave, a lot of the work that you do, I mean, you obviously work both with the shooting and the editing and all the rest, but a lot of your stuff is done on air. What big changes have you noticed in front of the camera?
Oh, I've gotten older, I think. I'm not, yes, I have. Look at me. Yeah. Gee, what I do, it feels like it's the same thing I've been doing for 35 years. It really does. I know it's all different and everything, but the old prompters were, of course, paper and yeah, and yellow paper, as a matter of fact. And oh gosh, well, you just got, when I got started, you got to do everything. You got to do every aspect of television, from shooting film, developing it, editing it, then shooting video, editing video. We have kids come into the station. I have a little tape-to-tape editing station in the sports office on DVC Pro, and I edit a lot of stuff. We have kids come in who've never seen tape-to-tape editing. All they know is how to do it on the computer, and it just blows me away. Well, everybody says that. Progress is so accelerated, it's unbelievable.
Well, and a lot of changes, Dick, but there has to be at least one thing that has remained the same since you started out in all of this many, many years ago. What would you say that is?
The thing that has remained the same is the fact is that what we are doing now, whether we used film or video or whatever medium we used, we're doing history. We're doing stories about people, and that's what people want to see, is stories about people. But whether we did it on tape or whether we did it on film, we recorded history, and that was even still photography. When I was at the World Herald, nothing has changed there. We still record history. I was at Grant Park on election night with President-elect Obama. I got to say now. You know, we recorded history. I wasn't there at that moment. I wasn't there, but I mean, we recorded history. The people that I worked with recorded history. I mean, people in 20 years are going to look back, or 50 years, or something like that, will look back and say, "Oh, wow, look at that." See, they'll look at the pictures and read the stories. But we are. I don't know. I consider myself a historian to a certain extent.
Earlier we showed the clip from The Wizard of Oz and that magical moment of going from black and white to color.
Yes.
Now, obviously the two of you have had a great deal of experience in this industry, but is there, and we'll start with Dick, is there one moment that stands out to you, kind of that aha moment in your life? What was to the rest of us, The Wizard of Oz aha moment? What was that for you?
I think it was the switch from the immediacy from film to video, because we then could do things live. We could tell people things were happening live, and then there was a responsibility then that everybody had to take. Yeah, you could shoot a fire live, but you can't do things like riots and things like that, because that incites people. You had to be very, very responsibility then. I mean, news directors, producers, people in management had to take responsibility. You know, you had to think, well, is this going? It's like yelling fire in a theater, a movie theater, crowded movie theater. You can't do that. And I think the switch from film to video, the immediacy, then was the big change.
Now, what about all the stories that you've covered or been a part of? Was there any particular moment when you were covering something that you will just never forget?
At Pope Paul VI's funeral in Rome in '78, I was on the colonnade with our correspondent from NBC, and that was pretty impressive. That was, I guess, that was probably made tremendous impression on me. You know, all this that was going on there. It was also the first time that I had been overseas, so it was Rome was pretty impressive at the time. I think some of the other things, maybe one of the other. I guess probably this last campaign was pretty impressive with me too, over in Iowa during the caucuses with all the candidates, with John McCain, Barack Obama, Huckabee, and all the other people. The immediacy of that, because I mean, CNN and the growth of CNN and Fox and all these different news outlets, you know, it can't happen without it being recorded somewhere.
Well, I'm glad that you bring that up, and Dave, we'll get to your moments in just a few minutes here. We did go from literally having about 3 choices back in the day to having a number of choices now, countless choices, and we had to wait for our news back then, and now we just get it immediately. Dave, talk to us a little bit about that and how that's impacted you directly or indirectly to know that there's so much available out there now. How does that change what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Well, the biggest thing it does is give the viewers more choices, and that cuts back on the advertising revenue of each individual station and each individual network, and that hurts the progress of that particular station. It takes more investment money beyond the revenue dollars now to proceed with things changing every single day, getting better and better. That's what, to me, that's what having more and more stations and cable and satellite and everything has done to the business. It's cut the pie in so many pieces that it's difficult to make a big profit anymore.
I was going to say, without the advertisers, then, how are folks going to survive?
Ooh, good question.
Let's talk about your job security, Dave. let's do that for a minute. And no, in all honesty, with the choices and with the cutback of advertisers, what is the future of the local?
I think that's
news?
the key. The key is the local news.
Yeah.
We do half hour several times a day of local news, and we concentrate on the local news and how the national news maybe affects the local situation. And you really can't get that on a show that is created 1,000 miles away.
Okay. My apologies for the diversion. We'll go back now to your magical moment. If you could rewind the tapes and come up with something.
There were 2. The switch from video or film to video, and I know a station didn't make it quick enough, and you never regain those viewers. Once another station goes to tape, and you can see the winning touchdown of the football game 5 minutes after it happens instead of waiting 45 minutes. And then the live aspect, the satellite trucks going live all over of course it's all connected to sports for me, but going live to every Big 12 school, taking a satellite truck and going live there. It's just unbelievable.
Any stories that you've covered that you'll just never forget?
1994 Orange Bowl. That's the one when they beat Miami. That was the biggest highlight of my sports coverage, sports life, really.
Ask a sports guy a question and get a sports response.
Absolutely.
And don't be surprised by that, I guess. Dick, you made the contributions of the equipment to the university, obviously countless other contributions. You've also made a lot, obviously, in the world of television. What do you perceive to be the biggest contribution you have made professionally in this industry?
Golly, I've done a lot in television. I think about all the assignments that I've done, the things that I've done in Washington to cover presidential inaugurations for NBC and ABC, Monica Lewinsky versus Bill Clinton, hurricanes, Obama's election, which I think is probably going to go down in history as probably one of the biggest things in this period. I don't know. I don't. Gee, people have asked me that before, and I just I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. It would be pretty hard.
Okay. And Dave, you've obviously shuttled through a lot of tape, generated a lot of highlights for the viewers. If you were to put together your own highlight tape
Of me?
of you, what would that include?
Wouldn't be very long, I'm afraid. I just enjoy bringing the moment to people and communicating with them. That's what I do best. Making the people at home enjoy what I have to say and what I have to show them. And illuminating their lives a little bit, I think. And Walter Cronkite said it in a show called You Are There. Everything is the same as it was Except you are there, and that's what you do. You bring the news to people and put them right in front of what's happening, and that's whatever the story is.
Okay.
That's what makes the business so exciting.
Excellent.
It is an exciting business. It really is.
And briefly, because we don't have a whole lot of time left, future of television.
The web.
Okay.
I think the web is, we see more and more webcasts. I think that's where people will begin to get their news more and more is off the internet.
Dave?
Retirement and fishing.
And how far away do we happen to be from retirement and fishing?
We don't know.
I'm going to retire in 2 years.
Okay.
And as I told Dr. Franklin here, I'm sort of sad that I'm going to be retiring because I think we're entering into a period of tremendous technological advances.
Oh yes, but on the other hand, the last 40 years in television have been the most fun thing I've ever done in my life. It's been a blast.
Well, and on behalf of everybody watching, I want to thank the two of you for coming in to share all of this with us. It's been a pleasure for me, and I'm sure it has been for our audience as well. Now, in the spirit of television and history, we're going to leave you with a special video celebrating UNO's centennial, appropriately called Central to Our City since 1908. Thank you all so much for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television. More information and program archives can be found at unotv.unomaha.edu. If you'd like to share your comments about this show, call UNO TV at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours.
The 12th season of Consider This is brought to you in part by From the Top, a national program showcasing the musical talents of young people. From the Top can be heard on KVNO Classical 90.7 each Saturday at 6 p.m.